good vibrations.
Okay, so we're over to Peru today, which seems an appropriate setting given the subject matter at hand. And I'm chatting to Sergey Baranov, who's a lifelong seeker, a researcher into entheogens and plant medicines, and he's the author of the newly published book, The Mescaline Confession, which follows up his book called Path, which came out in 2013. Sergey, welcome along, man.
Thank you, Mark. Glad to be here.
So we're going to be getting into the whole area of psychedelics / entheogens, and I'm going to ask you to define some of these terms shortly to make sure I've not got them twisted. What they can teach us, maybe a bit on how they can be abused, which certainly ties into much of my previous work on societal control, manipulation through popular culture and all this stuff. To set the scene, though, maybe you just want to tell us a brief bit about what initially sparked your interest in this particular topic, because it seems to be something that's occupied your entire adult life.
Yes, that's exactly right. Well, I born in Ukraine. At the age of 12, I moved to Israel, grew up there, and then, my spiritual search actually started there as a teenage boy.
What took you to Israel?
Well, we are Jews, so we were living in Ukraine, and Ukraine wasn't a very friendly place for Jews. It's
right.
It's a persecution. It wasn't really safe, So when the Russia collapsed, when the Soviet Union collapsed, just before 1991, well, the doors opened and we were given an opportunity to leave, and we were told that we're going home, to our land, where Jews would not be prosecuted. It's a Jewish state, So, we just immigrated the whole family, and our passports were taken away. We were told that it's a one-way street, so whatever is there, you cannot come back. So we went there, and I grew up there from age 13. And then 24, when I was 24, I moved to States in pursuit of spiritual path.
Well, what was the attraction of there?
In the States, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I joined, it's a fourth way. It's a kind of spiritual, philosophical system that was brought to Soviet Russia by Gurdjieff. He was a mystic and seeker, and he was traveling in the East and Asia, and he kind of gathered all the spiritual ideas together, and he was seeking for basically for awakening, for spiritual awakening. And he put together a system that was brought to Russia and become pretty popular there, and it's called a fourth way. So I just happened to come across to it, and I read some of those books, and I felt a certain resonance with it, and I joined a certain school, which was, in the traditional fourth way, and that was in Israel. And then they said that their teacher was living in California, so obviously I wanted to be near to my teacher, so I moved to America, and to be there, to continue my spiritual work. And of course, as if you read my first book, it turned out to be cold and, all that thing, and then I had to go through this for 6 years, and then I had to quit, and then I kept looking for spiritual experiences, for real spirituality, not ideology, but something that I can experience and understand myself. So in Israel, I was doing, I've been searching, so I've been doing everything I could, drugs and, psychedelics and everything that was available at the time. But I knew that there is something beyond that. And, after quitting the cold, I actually began my search for shamanic experiences. I knew intuitively that this is the gate. I just need to find the right people who work with the medicine in the right way and has the understanding that I was seeking for. And I found people in Peru. So this is how my shamanic path began in 2005.
Okay. How long have you been in Peru now?
10 years. It's going to be 10 years in a few months, in April.
Okay. Why do you think it is that some people go on a spiritual search such as this with the use of plant medicines, and other people can go an entire human lifetime without it ever figuring in any way in their experience. Do you think it's something you kind of pre-choose on a spirit level before you get here, or are there certain experiences that lead certain people down this path and different experiences cause others to stay away from it?
It's a really good question. I don't think I have an answer for this. I don't think anyone actually has an answer for this. It's something that can be in us as we're born, or something that we acquire. I really don't know. I just know that in my case, it was pretty early on. I was a kid already thinking about consciousness and magic and things like that. Like 5 years old, I was thinking how to transcend death. So where this came, I have no idea, but that's the fact. So it's important not to speculate about things that cannot be proven. So I cannot say whether I'm born with this or acquire.
Sure.
But the fact is that I was on my path already early on.
Okay.
So, in the fourth way, they explain it. There is an explanation for it. They call it magnetic center. So people who have spiritual inclination, who seeking for answers and meaning of life, they have kind of a magnetic center which forms as you grow up, which is a good idea, and I agree with it. But nobody explained how it actually starts. So I don't think I can answer your question.
All right, no worries. Now, the new book, The Mescaline Confession, that's the follow-on from Path. What sort of topics are you covering in this book that weren't included in the earlier one? Is this all about mescaline, or does it cover other subject areas as well?
Well, the first book was mostly my autobiography. So it's how I came to Peru and how I ended up doing what I'm doing. The new book, it's actually an outlook on life from 10 years of ongoing shamanic experience. And of course, I try to focus on what I do, but it is so inclusive that it's hard to just talk about one thing without touching upon other subjects, like cultural criticism and everything that is happening in our culture, because it's very much part of the experience. When you have a truly revealing shamanic experience, you look past, you see what's actually happening in reality. You pass the fireworks and all this destruction. That's just a stage you have to go through quickly. The point of shamanic experience is to understand yourself and your place in this world, and see how you can contribute for a better world. That is what it is, truly. So I shared a few personal stories which I never shared with anyone before, and I felt like sincerity is the way to open people's heart. And if I want to touch your heart, I need to talk from my heart. So I shared that, and I just shared my view on culture, what is happening in the world today, religion, the dogma of science, and like certain forces, societal forces, which governs our minds. So I brought it up to start, and then I try to bring shamanism, plant-based medicine, plant-based shamanism as a solution to personal and collective madness within the world. So this is basically what the book is about.
Sure. I want to get into some terminologies, and I'd be grateful if you can just clear some of these up for me, because I just want to make sure I've got them straight. What is the difference between psychedelics, entheogens, psychoactives, and hallucinogenics? Are these all different things?
Well, the entheogen and the psychedelics, and what was the third one you said?
Psychoactives.
Yeah, this is basically the same name, just different name for the same phenomena, for mind manifesting plants or substances, because psychedelic means mind manifesting or mind revealing. So psychedelic, psychoactive, entheogen means revealing the divine within. So it's really kind of the same family, it's around there.
Sure.
But the hallucinogens, that's now here's a different story. hallucinogens, that's a not correct word that ascribed to many plants, which aren't hallucinogens. For example, I work with Wachuma cactus, San Pedro, which classified as hallucinogen. But that is incorrect because we don't hallucinate. I worked with this medicine 10 years and I had 1,000 ceremonies and I had hundreds of people over the years and no one hallucinated. I mean, the experience is the most sane experience you can even have in your life using psychoactive plants. You're just, you're more awake, you're more, it enhances your perception, it reveals the truth. I mean, you just become more self-aware, but you're not hallucinating. You're not looking at the mountain and you see something which isn't there, or trees are talking to you and bending into you, like becoming serpents. We don't have that stuff. Everything is the same. You just see beauty of nature. You just see the connection and you feel it the way you never had before. But nobody hallucinates. I write my books on the medicine. So if I would be hallucinating, it would be very hard to write anything. Don't you think?
Well, it'd be like a Lewis Carroll novel, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be Lewis Carroll. Exactly. Hallucination, that would be that. I mean, we don't have that. We're bypassing all that. It's a very intelligent, sane experience. We can have a very deep, heart-to-heart, soul-to-soul conversations. And this is how people find healing. They just understand their lives and understand what they have to do in order to find better happiness.
Sure.
But people are not hallucinating here at all. So hallucinogen is just not the right word. When you drink 2 bottles of vodka and you're talking to the wall outside of the bar, you are hallucinating.
Now, would hallucinogen be an appropriate term for compounds like LSD?
Well, maybe better, yeah. It can be, because we take LSD and kind of the whole universe is melting around you, and yeah, that would be okay to say. It's psychedelic, hallucinogen, well, kind of on the border. I mean, more it would be kind of, I would suggest something of DMT kind of thing, then you have all this kind of weird visions and other dimensional things, and that would be kind of more closer to this. Or if you take, I shared in my book, if you remember, when I took this antipsychotic medication, and then that was purely hallucinogen.
Sure.
Like you're out of your mind, you're talking to people who aren't in your room. I mean, you just go through hell. Like you're alone in your room, but at the same time, the whole hell is breaking loose. That is hallucinogen. Yeah. So it's not quite appropriate to relate this to the sacred medicine we work with, Right. And that's what I try to correct in my book.
So psychedelic was a relabeling of entheogens, basically. And I think entheogen etymologically breaks down as the god within. It's like
the god within, yes. It's all the same thing. It's just a different name, just kind of maybe more fancy. Psychedelic has a little bit negative baggage with it, it kind of
I think people think of LSD when they hear the term, and they think of everything that was going on in the 60s.
Yeah, so kind of to move away from all that cultural baggage, I think the new term was made. It is more correct, because it is what it is. It really the generator of the divine within, if you really know what you're doing and doing it right, So it's the right word to use. I don't like psychedelic personally, although I use it just to make references.
Sure. And could psychedelic or entheogen be used to describe things like LSD and MDMA, or do they refer just to natural plant medicines rather than things that have been cooked up in a laboratory?
Well, I used MDMA a lot in my youth, and that was a great tool for personal understanding. I mean, that was the only thing that kept me sane during those years, living in Israel, then being in the cold. I mean, that was my dose of fresh air. So it's not really psychedelic, but it is more like entheogen, even though it's a lab made. Yes, it has the capacity to open your heart and connect you to to that beautiful world out there. And, you can spend a few hours thinking and contemplating and, understanding something. Of course, it's not as plant medicine, and I made this distinction. But from everything else you have, then that would be a better choice.
So you had MDMA being cooked up by this scientist, Alexander Shulgin, and LSD is credited to this guy, Albert Hofmann, and they obviously came out of laboratories, and there's all kinds of research to show how their findings were co-opted by the intelligence services and put out there as, weaponized tactics. But do you feel that these compounds were designed to mimic natural plant medicines and to keep people away from the real thing by having them take these synthesized versions of it? What's your take on that whole process?
It's hard to say, because I personally have a lot of respect for Shulgin. I think he was beyond this being a chemist. He had a spiritual search, and he truly tried to come up with some tools that people can work with. As for Hoffman, I'm not sure about that. What was the background thing? But it could be that. It could be what you're saying. Someone could finance that, and what you just said, that to find a tool for mind control, because it can be used that way for sure. So it's hard to say what really happened there. I mean, I wasn't there. I can just tell you how what effect it had on me and what I have chosen. That's like something I can speak from personal experience.
Sure. Well, we'll get some more into that. And I want to return to this issue of certain compounds being used as tools of the intelligence services, because it ties in a lot with previous work that I've put out. So I just got a couple of further questions about that as we progress. But just while we're on this area of it all, where would marijuana fit into this in terms of, what group that falls into?
Well, it's not a psychedelic, it's not entheogen, it's none of those. It's, it's just what it is. It's marijuana. It's just a
plant medicine, right?
Yeah, it's a plant medicine for sure. It's a plant medicine. It's a good medicine if you use it with, with moderation and intention, and But the problem with pot, that it's easily abused. It's not used ceremonially. It's not used spiritually. Mostly, it's just like become a recreative drug, and kind of you use it on top of alcohol and everything else. So,
well, if you're going to lay on the sofa all day eating and watching films and not doing anything with your life, then it's probably not the most positive of outcomes.
No, of course not. It just makes you lazy. I mean, there is a big difference if you work all week hard and doing things and take care of your family and, putting things out there, and, you smoke a joint in the forest and just to relax and calm down from the whole week and, just reconnect to yourself and listen to the birds. I mean, there is nothing wrong about that, It can be used as a medicine. But if you wake up in the morning and the first thing you're doing, you're looking for your bunk below your bed, then you have a problem. It's time to dry up.
I guess so. And we should probably talk a little bit about what mescaline actually is, as it's the title of your book. It's derived from a cactus plant, right? A particular type of cactus.
Well, mescaline is an alkaloid. It's a psychoactive alkaloid found in both peyote cactus, which is native to Mexico, and huachuma, or San Pedro cactus, native to Peru. And, this tradition goes back thousands of years.
You can speak to people who have had experiences on LSD and also mescaline and things like ayahuasca. And some of them will tell you it was an amazingly transformative experience. It changed their life forever in a very positive way, and the way they now view the world and themselves. But you'll get others who will talk of how it screwed their mind, and maybe it led to things like psychosis, schizophrenia, memory loss, things like this. Why are people undergoing different experiences and outcomes from the same substances? Would that be all to do with their spiritual stability and the state of consciousness that they're in at the time they take them? Is that the major issue there, do you feel?
Yes, one of them for sure. It's a medical history. It's your personal baggage. It's what you bring to it, especially when people come to work with ayahuasca. I mean, you have to be really careful if you're on any kind of medication. That can be dangerous. If you suffer of schizophrenia or psychosis, you should never drink ayahuasca. That would be like putting, putting gasoline on fire. So this is for people who are reasonably healthy and sane and rational, and people who just need some help, people who want to open up and understand something, But this is not for people who are mentally unstable. If you take any psychedelic, forget about like ayahuasca. You can just smoke pot and have a psychosis, which is a very mild experience.
Can these mental conditions be brought about as a result of using these substances, or would they already have to be there before somebody starts?
I think there is such a risk if you come unprepared. If you doing like recreationally, if you just like doing it out of boredom or because somebody else did it, and you just come without proper understanding, training, level of sincerity and spiritual search, and you're not working with people who know how to hold the place and the space and how to guide the medicine, yes, I think you can freak out and it can traumatize you, for sure. These are powerful medicines. And if you take acid, for example, in the same way, like you don't know why you're doing this, yeah, you can have a problem. This is it's all safe if you know what you're doing and if you have a strong mind and you're a sincere person. But if you take it as drinking beer outside on the street, then you can have serious problems. Yes, this is the part of shamanic education that I'm talking about. People have to understand, like, why are you doing what you're doing? Why?
Yeah.
And who you're doing with, and where, and setting. These things are important. It's not just you go to the party and, taking something. That's...
Sure, it's all about your intent and what you expect to get out of it, right?
Yeah, of course. It's a certain setting. It's where you do it, with who you do it, and what you bring to it in terms of your mental intention.
That's why you have things like ayahuasca ceremonies where a shaman will preside over the event and do it in controlled surroundings rather than an individual going off and doing it, on their own terms without the settings being correct, right?
For sure. You do it on yourself, you most likely will have problems. You will not know how to get out of it. That's the danger. It has to be you have to do it with the people who have experience, who know how to hold the medicine, who know how to, get you out of difficulties if you need help. There is a certain way to do things. That has to be respected. That's the problem. That's what happened with, the psychedelic revolution in the States. There was just a powerful psychedelics around, but people didn't know what to do with it. It was kind of out of control. Just take LSD and then what? Well, and then the whole thing melt around you and then you go crazy. You have to have a certain spiritual framework in which you put this experience, and then you work with this energy, directing it to specifics. That's something that was missing because it was not shamanic. It was just psychedelic. It was just pure psychedelic experience, and people just, kind of went wild. And it depends on you. If you have strong mind and you have some, you can get out of it something. But for others, it can be harmful.
Yeah, clearly. Is there a certain age before which you would not recommend that people try this stuff?
Well, I respect the legal.
But it's not for kids, right?
No, for sure, no. This is for people, mature people. Around, I would say, I do get people like in their late 20s, like 25, 28, but they're mature. They're thinking people, and they're like spiritual seekers. So there is something already there happening. We can work with. So it's like around 25, 28, 30, this is when I started, But of course, I see, people in 30s, 40s, they get more out of it. I mean, this is for mature people. You have to have a certain life experience to bring to it, and reflect upon that. What life experience you have when you're 20? I mean, not much. I mean, it is good experience because if you work with people who know what they're doing, I mean, you can, like for example, I can help you to avoid problems. If you are 20 years old and you come and you're serious and you're, spiritual seeker and you're really trying to understand things in your life, trying to live right. And we can talk a lot, and I can share my experiences which I had with drugs in my youth. And based on that, I can help you to avoid the wrong path, so I can set you on the right path, talking from my personal experiences, which were helpful, So late 20s and on, I have people in 70 years old. I had a doctor from Australia, he was 70,
Well, this was the thing about the psychedelic revolution, the counterculture in the 1960s, centered around California. You had kids, because that's what they were, of like 16, 17, 18 years of age, that were being coerced into going on acid trips. And to my mind, that's way too young. You're nowhere near spiritually or mentally mature to be able to handle an experience like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's completely immature and irresponsible.
Yeah, and it was all concocted, as we'll get into. Have you personally come into contact with non-human entities through using these products? Because you hear these stories from people that have done DMT, ayahuasca, these different things, that they come into contact with these other, entities. Have you had a personal experience like that at all?
No, not with the medicine I'm working with. We're working with the forces of nature. We don't work with spirits and aliens and all that DMT stuff. I mean, this is just not the realm we enter. This medicine, Wachuma, it's just about nature. It's about you finding connection with nature, and through this you heal your traumas and you open your mind. So it's a very earthy experience, although it's truly magical in its full sense. So when you hear people talking about aliens and stuff, this is more DMT world, and it's not personally something I relate to. It's just not my thing. I'm earthy, I'm human, I want to understand how to be human. And I'm not sure that an alien knows better about humanity than me or you, We're here to learn about ourselves using plants growing from the land.
Okay, I see that. I've heard people who've done ayahuasca trips. I'm not sure if it's the same with some of these other plant medicines, but they've talked of how it's similar to what we hear about out-of-body experiences and near-death experiences, where you get a kind of life review. So you come out of your body, so to speak, and you get to experience, from the point of view of your higher self, the impact that your behaviours and your actions have had from the point of view of those it's affected. So from the wider perspective of all of creation. And a lot of people seemingly break down in tears as a result of this, because they can finally see themselves the way others see them. And it's also been known to cure lifelong habits and addictions, from what we hear. And I've also heard that you undergo a physical purge as well as a spiritual one. So you're releasing all the toxins and all the bad stuff, and that involves people throwing up and shitting themselves and things like that. They're just getting rid of all the crap from within them. How much truth is there in all that? Have you had any of those kind of experiences yourself?
Yes, that's truthful. Yeah, that's what's happening. Ayahuasca, this is your experience, really. You purge, you have diarrhea, you have catharsis, you meet some spirits, and you get a good self-reflection. But and everything you said, it's actually true. She can shake you up. She's strong enough to shake you up out of your trance, out of your bad habits. Although the journey can be rough, but sometimes that's what you need to, to break bad habits. So yes, that's what you said is true. Same thing is happening here, but we have a different way. Wachuma is not purgative, and the detox is more emotional. So people cry, and when you understand something personal, but it's very different experiences. Ayahuasca done at night, we do it in the daylight. I work with light and beauty.
I think something you feel very strongly about is how Western so-called medicine has sought to demonize certain plant medicines as dangerous, and instead they prefer to foist their own chemically produced pharmaceutical alternatives cooked up in laboratories on us as the normal, quote-unquote, way of doing things. I think that's a subject quite close to your heart from what you've written about in the book. You consider that whole thing pretty disgusting and foul, the way the narrative has been turned on its head.
Yes, I completely agree. I mean, Western pharmaceutical, big pharma, it just becomes such a monster that, it's just taking over the world. Everyone who probably on some kind of medication. Powerful medicines like we have in Peru, this is the antidote for that. I mean, you can just stay with us a few weeks and you just stop taking your Prozac. You just don't need it anymore, because what happens is that, the Western, the psychiatric medication does not address the cause of your depression. It just masks the symptom and kind of adjusts you back to the society, so you can go back to work and, become, just do the normal thing. But it will not cure you, because there is no curing in it. Your depression is not the cause. Your depression is a symptom of your life. Like you're not living right. Something is wrong in your life. So the medicine, true medicine, allows you to look inside and see what is it that is wrong in your life that cause depression.
And the big joke is that most pharmaceutical products are based around original plant substances that occur in nature anyway. So they're just synthesized and there's artificial versions of them made in laboratories. Whereas if they cut out the middleman and just went straight to the plant medicine in the first place, they could avoid, all this pharmaceutical crap that they foist on everyone.
It's a very bad joke, it's actually an evil joke. Because if what they would be cooking would work, then it's okay, I can understand, like a middleman kind of thing. All right. But the problem with it that it doesn't. I mean, you cannot cure your depression using Prozac, because it's not curative. It's just a suppressive of your symptoms. They cannot cure anything when it comes to your depression, because your depression is the symptom of something wrong in your life. You're not living your life correctly. So your soul gets depressed. Your soul is unhappy. It tells you, I am unhappy. Do something about that. Look inside and understand and change things. So instead of doing this, you just take Prozac that suppresses this symptom, suppresses this depression, and then nothing changes in your life. You just continue to be depressed. And it's just enough to adjust you back to society. That's it. That's all it does. So it's mimicking, but it's not even helpful. It's kind of prolonging the pain and creates dependency, chemical dependency.
And huge profits.
Oh, for sure. That's why.
Exactly.
I mean, there is probably two. I mean, for sure, it's a huge profit, and another one is just to keep you ill. Just maintain a certain illness that you...
That's right. That's the customer base. They need
it's a
constant customer base.
Yeah, it's a lifelong, basically. It's a very hard to get off this. And, the problem is that you get used to one drug, and then this drug doesn't work anymore, so they offer you a stronger drug. Your dependency grows. And when do you get off this? Never.
That's they had the idea.
Prozac. Well, of course, they had Prozac in America, and now everybody using Abilify, which is antipsychotic drug. This is crazy. I mean, you think these people are depressed, but even if they were depressed, now they're taking not just antidepressants, but antipsychotic. Can you imagine 100 million people using antipsychotic drugs? I mean, this is like, if you truly need that, it can kind of maybe harness your psychosis, for temporary. But what if you don't need it? if a normal person is prescribed this medication, what do you think happened to your brain when you take antipsychotic drugs when you don't need them? Well, you become psychotic. It just screws up your chemistry, your brain chemistry. It's kind of, if you didn't need that, well, now you do. You know, this is a serious problem with all this overprescription thing.
And then you got people that are on these pharmaceutical drugs that, you know, they're coursing through their veins, swimming through their bodies, and then they go to the toilet and piss this stuff out, and it's going into the water supply, and traces of it obviously are going to remain even after filtration, and it's kind of seeping through into the drinking water and stuff like that. So it's having an after effect in that way as well. Absolutely.
It's almost, there is no way around it. Even if you don't take medication, you get it from your tap water. You know, it's a medicated world we are living in. I mean, it was just an article recently I read. It's like cocaine and antidepressant were found in waterways around London or something. It's just right where you are. You know, it's polluting everything around.
It's a mad world. I want to talk a bit about how entheogens or psychedelics have been weaponized by the social engineers then at various points in the past few decades, because this obviously ties into a lot of my previous work. The obvious example, as we've already touched on, is the 60s counterculture, which is now proven to have occurred to a very large extent at the hands of the CIA and other organisations like the Tavistock Institute and British Military Intelligence. So LSD was the compound of choice that was used to change society and culture in those times. But you also saw the likes of psilocybin mushrooms at the hands of Gordon Warson, who promoted that whole thing. Peyote, mescaline was around then, and other things were being peddled too. Now, the agencies involved in all this stuff are not generally known for their philanthropic desire to uplift and spiritually enlighten all of humanity. They weren't doing it for that. I think it's reasonable to assume they had other aims in mind. And the general consensus among researchers is that LSD and all these other things were used to get young people to drop out of society. Like we said earlier, you had kids of 17, 18 habitually taking LSD. It was designed to alienate them from their parents' generation and drive a wedge between them and, you know, their parents, the establishment, to promote ideals of free love and sex and to keep them away from any kind of political activism. So from this point of view, the manipulations of that period could be considered a great success. And then you had the acid house and rave scene that was birthed out of the UK about 30 years ago, where ecstasy was suddenly on the scene. It was MDMA used to control that narrative. So I think we've got some good examples there of how these items can be used to do great harm to a society rather than uplift them in any beneficial way if they fall into the hands of the wrong people.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is all energies. There is no inherent good or bad in here. This is just energy. It's like fire. You can use fire in your house to keep your family warm and cook a meal, you know, or you can just burn a forest around you. That's exactly what it is with psychedelics and entheogens and everything. It's what hands are doing this, you know.
Yeah, and what the intention is, as always.
Yeah, what's the intention? I mean, do you want to heal people or kill people? I mean, you can do both, you know. You can, of course, you can control minds and direct masses into psychosis, or you can actually help people to find healing. It depends who is doing this.
Now, I think you wanted to comment on the current and future advent of artificial intelligence technology and this societal push towards transhumanism. From the tones I detect in your book, this is something you also feel very strongly about, and I do as well. Do you want to just make some comments about where society is headed in that regard, and, you know, things we need to be aware of there?
Yeah, I think AI, it's posing a serious danger to humanity. You know, the threat is growing every day. It was like maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, Elon Musk actually went on Joe Rogan's show, and they actually talked about this, and I took the time to watch that. because I knew that he will ask him this question, and I just wanted to hear his take on this. Because, Elon Musk, he kind of involved in this Neuralink and all this stuff, so he would know more than an average person. So he just confirmed my concerns, and when Rogan asked him, what do you think about this AI, what is the current state? And Elon Musk said that he was concerned about it so much that he went to talk to politicians, and he actually talked to Obama about this. He spoke about the grave danger of AI, and he said that no one listened to him. I mean, Obama listened to him, but and that's it. Nothing. And he kind of got. That's what I understood. And so he made an effort. He talked to people, and he said, you know what? There is no stopping it. We need to find a way to cope with it. And that was pretty dangerous, So that's mean that it's inevitable. That's mean there is no stopping. That's mean the moving. So what he's trying to do is kind of to cope with it, so we don't stay behind. We're kind of working with this, kind of creating this interface that can kind of respond to this new thing. But I think it's a serious problem. This transhumanism, I mean, this is to me, this is pure evil. That's how I see it.
Yeah, me too.
It's anti-human technology.
Exactly.
And the purpose of this, the way I see it, and I'm just telling you what I feel. I mean, I'm not claiming any objectivity here. I'm not a great researcher on the subject. I'm just telling you from what I see. I'm just looking at the world, and that's what I feel, and I'm just sharing with you. So this is just subjective opinion, So to me, it seems like there is a certain element of society, of course, the rich and powerful, that they think that they can reach immortality via technology. This is what it is. They think that they can just upload their consciousness into the computer and just live forever while we all die here, just leaving us all behind, just fighting each other, starving, and all what's on the menu. You know what I mean? So it's a certain escape through technology. That's why it's been developed.
Well, it seems there's different branches to it. So there's the element of AI technology that the elites have got planned for themselves, where they want to be immortal and upload their consciousness to a cloud and all this. But they've also got aspects of this technology in mind for the rest of us, which is designed to enslave us and keep us locked down and keep us connected to this grid where we can be surveilled and controlled. So, their philanthropic vision for themselves doesn't seem to extend to us.
No, of course not. Of course, never. It's not, it's not for you and for me,
Yeah.
We don't get the goodies.
We're not in the club.
We're not included. We're not included in the salvation plan. So that's what makes us, talk about this. Because if we want to have a future, we need to do something about things like that. Because we're not included.
Yeah, and it's so obvious. It's such an elephant in the room, the threat that this poses for humanity, and yet so few people seem to be taking it seriously, like you said. There's just a very small number of mentally ill psychopaths that are developing all this technology, and it's to the detriment of everyone else. And at what point are people going to start paying attention to this and starting to resist it and attempting to curtail it? The problem is it's always sold to us on the basis of convenience and making our lives better.
Absolutely.
And the commercials are made very attractive, and people think it's great to have these Siri Alexa things where they can say, "Oh, tell me, is it going to rain today, Siri?" And what time is the train from Birmingham getting in? They think it's so convenient just to have a voice telling you all this stuff, but they don't seem to be making the connection between this and their own digital electronic enslavement, which is what it is. Wake the fuck up.
Absolutely. And wait until they try to implant something in your body to receive direct signals. This is a serious situation when you have a microchip things, and this is where we're all moving towards microchipping.
Yeah, madness.
It's a total madness. It's a total control. It's like Orwell on steroids. If Orwell will be alive today, he would write another book and probably 3 more books. And this is like, we already surpassed that thing by far.
And for how many decades has this stuff been in movies? You've seen movies about exactly the type of society we've got today. And somebody in the 1970s could have seen a movie and gone, oh, well, that's a bit far-fetched, the plot was a bit crazy. And yet here we are living it. And we've been forewarned about it for the past several decades.
Yes, we were. I mean, just look what's the madness with the sex robots. Are you following this thing?
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
I mean, this is like... this is not a joke. I mean, people are going nuts. Sex robots. I mean, you're buying your Samantha in the store, and this is your girlfriend now. I mean, this is. There was a movie, Cherry 2000, made in like 80s, like 30 years ago, exactly about this. You're making love with your robot, and then she short circuit, and you take it to the mechanic. I mean, this is what's happening today. We're living this right now.
Yep.
So,
and I agree with you that all this stuff is anti-life, anti-nature, anti-God, anti-creation. It's taken everything that's natural and inherent to creation and creating a bastardized, monstrous, version of it, which is just disgusting and abominable to me.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. This is like anti-life. Yeah. I completely agree. This is the best term to describe this. It's anti-life.
That's right.
And it's like, how do we stop this thing? I mean, what do we do with all this stuff? I mean, I think we need to talk about this more and more, and everyone just have to talk. That's at least we have to do, without fear.
Yeah.
We need to denounce stupidity. We cannot afraid to do this. What is there to be afraid? I mean, what is our future? Are you following the current news? I mean, they want to dim the sun now.
Yeah.
I mean, this is insanity. This is catastrophe on global level. This is the end of life on Earth. I mean, what are we afraid of?
It's madness. People will get so upset about a particular politician, like Trump gets in and people lose their minds. They go out on rallies, they organize events. Everybody's talking about this one guy that happened to get into a position in office. But there's so many more obvious threats to us than one individual like that when they're trying to block the friggin' sun out and things like that.
I mean, this should be something that everyone talked about. Everyone, every person on this planet should be pissed off about this.
Right.
I mean, what the hell? Who has the right to block my sun? This is my sun. This is your sun. This is everyone's sun. You want to block it? Well, you block it in your apartment. What do you mean blocking the sun? This is life on Earth. Plants need it. We need it. I mean, everything directly interrelated. Directly, you block the sun, we die. You have a decade to live. Food supply collapse, oxygen level collapse, we freeze to death. I mean, you guys in London, I mean, how much sun you have now?
Not a whole lot.
Imagine, and people are depressed now. I mean, just gray sky, that's all you see, But imagine you have 10 times less sun. I mean, the Northern Hemisphere, it just goes first.
Straight psychopathic insanity. Nothing less.
It's evil. It's diabolical plan to exterminate life. So what's more important? This is what makes me angry. When I see all this people like these activists and these vegans. I mean, I understand the sentiments and it's all good, and we do need to take care of animals and everyone else. But you know what? There are priorities in this life. I mean, how about we just worry about life on Earth first, and then we'll worry about rescuing chicken from the restaurant? Is it a better plan?
At the very least, we need conversations about this everywhere. As you say, we need conversations around the water cooler at work, and guys down the pub talking about this. Forget the football match. Let's talk about this instead. Conversations everywhere.
Everywhere. It has to be on TV. It has to be on radio. It has to be everywhere. We need to call this bullshit out. And the mad scientists need to be jailed. I think drastic measures has to be called. Because
if they don't like the sun, let's go and stick them all in a cave somewhere and roll a boulder across it, and they can live out their days there.
Go to Mars if you want. Why don't you go to Mars? I'm staying. I'm earthy. I love this planet. I'm not going anywhere. You want to go to Mars? Go ahead. Leave my son alone, okay? Because this is life. This is my life, and this is life of my children. And this is the fight that everyone should get involved, because this is not local issue. Local issue, like that's a different story. Global threats must be addressed on global level. me, you, people in Australia, in America. I mean, I don't care who you believe, Trump, Hillary, Tony Blair, who cares? It doesn't matter. We need our son to live. So this is where the conversation has to be. Everything else, I don't care. You want to save chickens? Good. I mean, how about we just talk about this later? How about we tackle Fukushima, that eradicating life on Earth? How about we talking about these things? And then we take care of the small things, small issues, you know? We'll just sit down and figure this out. But this is where the outrage has to be, and I don't see this outrage. That's what pissed me off. People just don't know what to do with their energies. They don't know what to do with their time. They don't know what to do with their outrage, where to direct this outrage, you know? So I think it's part of our responsibility to help people to direct their attention to the actual issues that are threatening life on Earth. And everyone should be concerned. Democrats, Republican, I don't know if you believe in whatever you believe in, it doesn't matter. Are you a human being? You should be concerned about this. This is the point.
That's right. That's right.
You know?
A well-placed, relevant rant is always a good thing, and especially in these crucial times.
Absolutely. I mean, it's enough. It's enough. You know, is this political correctness will kill us, will destroy us all. Look what it has already done. Now in America, in Canada, you can't even talk to people without, you know, thinking first, like, how do I call this person? You know, there are 85 genders now.
Jeez, don't get me started on all that.
I don't want to start on that too, man. I'm just kind of, you know what I mean. I mean that.
Well, I always understood that there are masculine components to creation and feminine. The end.
The period. It's period. What we're seeing now.
You're one or the other. The end. Good night.
Period. That's it. I don't recognize anything beyond that. I mean, what we're seeing now, it's a complete schizophrenia on societal level, on a global level. It's a complete psychosis. But you see, the problem is that, okay, it's one thing if you are mentally ill and, you know, it's your personal problem. Well, okay, I understand. I have compassion for you. I wish you well. I truly wish you well. But I have problem when you start pushing your mental illness on me and my children. So this is where the problem starts.
Well, let's start to wrap up then, Sergey. I did want to ask you a bit about your spiritual retreat center in Peru. I'm probably going to screw up the pronunciation, but what is it? Huachumawasi? Is that right?
Yeah, that's good. Huachumawasi.
All right. Tell us what goes on there.
Well, it's our retreat center. You know, this is where we do medicine, and this is where people can come and stay with us and share the beautiful experience. And, you know, we live in the mountains. It's stunning all around. And, you know, we talk about things. And we're just trying to help people to find their path in life. It's a place of sanity. That's what I call it. You know, it's an oasis of sanity in the insane world. That's what I'm trying to build here. Something that can help you to understand yourself.
Well, we need a few of those.
For sure. And the more we have, the better. And there is no more time to play around. I mean, it's time to wake up and take our world back. Take our humanity back. Take our sanity back.
Now, remind people where they can get hold of your book. And is there any other of your work that you want to promote at this point?
Well, you know, I have everything on my website, all my books and podcasts. And, you know, it's the best way, www.shamansworld.org. You can write me and I'll respond to you and we can start from there.
All right. So your book's on Amazon, but you sell copies directly as well?
Yes. Directly. You can buy everything from us. All
right. Okay. Sergey, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Mark.
This is just a wrap.
I'm picking up vibrations.